Gunther has finally revealed why he isn't fighting Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. Instead, Brock was sent into a brutal Hell in a Cell match. But a shocking backstage demand ended their dream match before it began. And in this video, you'll see what permanently stopped the collision. For months, the pairing looked locked in. Brock Lesnar versus Gunther at SummerSlam in Minneapolis. In Lesnar's own home state, felt like the kind of match WWE circles for years and finally cashes in. Instead, that match is gone, and Lesnar is walking into a Hell in a Cell with Femi instead. The report that broke this open came from Self-Made Pro on the Self-Made Sessions podcast, and it didn't hedge. According to The Insider, WWE's original SummerSlam 2026 plans called for a match between Lesnar and Gunther. And that wasn't a throwaway idea floating around creative meetings. It was the plan. Gunther was supposed to face Brock at SummerSlam, and Gunther was supposed to face Roman in the late spring, early summer. Self-Made Pro said, laying out a two-step build that would have carried Gunther through the biggest possible opponents WWE had available. First Reigns, then Lesnar at the biggest party of the summer. Then it all fell apart. For whatever reason, that got changed, so that switched up a lot of creative. Gunther was gonna work Roman and Brock. The report continued. No Reigns match happened, no Lesnar match happened. Two of the biggest programs WWE had drawn up for its most dominant heel simply vanished from the schedule. Here's what makes this stranger than a normal creative shuffle. This wasn't Lesnar backing out. Insiders were direct about that. I don't think it was a case of Brock saying, "Give me 2 more Oba matches." That's not what happened. Self-Made Pro said, shutting down the idea that Lesnar had any hand in redirecting his own program. If Lesnar didn't ask for it, and Gunther didn't get moved into anything comparable in scale, then somebody upstairs made a call that reshaped 3 separate careers at once. The version of events fans got instead. Lesnar and Femi split their first 2 encounters, with the score getting evened out at Clash in Italy after Lesnar lost to Femi at WrestleMania 42, setting up a decider. That decider is now a Hell in a Cell match at SummerSlam at US Bank Stadium the weekend of August 1st and 2nd. Reigns, meanwhile, is defending his championship against Seth Rollins. 2 premium matchups, both filled by other performers, both leaving Gunther on the outside of the plans that were built specifically around him. And that's the part that stings. This isn't a case of Gunther being cold or unbookable. The report was blunt about what he'd actually accomplished in the window where these plans supposedly got torn up. It's unclear why WWE scrapped both feuds for Gunther, who retired Goldberg, John Cena, and AJ Styles over a 5-month period. 3 legends, 5 months. That's not a guy who lost his spot through poor performance. That's a guy who was doing exactly what a top act is supposed to do, and still watched his 2 biggest matches of the year disappear. So if it wasn't Lesnar saying no, and it wasn't Gunther cooling off, something else moved the pieces. And that's where this story stops being a scheduling footnote and starts being about what's actually been happening to Gunther on WWE television for the last several weeks, because while the internet was speculating about a Lesnar showdown that never got announced, Gunther was busy putting his hands on a general manager, losing championship opportunities in humiliating fashion, and building something that nobody drew up on a whiteboard 6 months ago. Coverage of the fallout has been consistent on one point. Whatever the internal reasoning, the shakeup had Gunther supposed to tangle with both Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar in 2026. Before WWE's creative plans shifted. That's confirmed across multiple outlets now, not just a single source repeating a rumor. And the same reporting reinforces that nobody wants to point a finger at Lesnar for the change. He's been described, according to the same report, as the least creatively picky he's been for a long time. Which means whatever redirected his SummerSlam plans, it came from above him, not from him asking for more time with Femi. So here's where we are, a match that insiders confirm was drawn up, a wrestler who did everything asked of him, a dream opponent who wasn't the one blocking it. And somewhere in the gap between those facts sits the actual reason Gunther isn't walking into SummerSlam across from Brock Lesnar. To understand it, you have to go back and track what Gunther was actually doing while this was supposedly in motion. Because his story didn't pause while Lesnar and Reigns got reassigned. It kept moving, and it moved somewhere nobody expected. To understand how big a swing this is, you need to understand what Gunther had built up to this point, and why Lesnar specifically was the finish line everyone had circled. Gunther's run through 2025 and into 2026 wasn't a normal push. It was a demolition. He didn't just beat legends, he ended chapters. He has recently been on a tier of retiring legends. In 2025, he retired Goldberg and John Cena. In 2026, he has retired AJ Styles. That's not a list WWE hands to a mid-card act. That's the kind of resume they build around someone they intend to plant at the top of the card for years. And the Lesnar connection wasn't invented out of nowhere either. This has been simmering for a long time. WWE has teased Lesnar vs. Gunther in the past. They had a face-off at the 2023 Royal Rumble. This seemed to indicate that they'd have a match, but it hasn't happened yet. That stare-down lived in fans' memories for years, one of those moments where two guys who look like they were built in a lab just stand across from each other and let the moment breathe. WWE knew what they had, they just kept sitting on it. Part of the reason it sat unused ties back to Lesnar's own complicated timeline. Lesnar was pulled from WWE Creative after his feud with Cody Rhodes in 2023. This was done after he was linked to the Janelle Grant lawsuit against Vince McMahon. He would not make his return until SummerSlam 2025. So for 2 years, the Gunther program was frozen, not because Gunther wasn't ready, but because his intended dance partner was off the board entirely. Then Lesnar came back and the machinery started moving again. Gunther, for his part, was direct about wanting it. In comments given earlier this year, he made clear the Lesnar match wasn't a fantasy he was avoiding. It was next on his list once he cleared out his current business. He said he was focused on his championship match against Cody Rhodes at the time, and that Lesnar could challenge him once that was finished. Telling outlets, "I'm really focused on what I'm doing with Cody now. I will be challenging for the WWE Undisputed Championship in Italy, and that's my full focus right now." Followed by, "After I beat Cody, then Brock can challenge me, and we'll do that." That's about as clear a green light as a top star can give. He wasn't ducking Lesnar, he was queuing him up. And the timing lined up with the biggest storyline development in Lesnar's own year. Lesnar's WrestleMania 42 loss to Femi looked, for a moment, like the end of his entire career. Lesnar teased retirement after his loss to Femi at WrestleMania 42 by taking his boots and gloves off and leaving them in the ring. He also hugged Paul Heyman and broke character by acknowledging the crowd. Fans who'd watched Lesnar for 2 decades read that as a goodbye. Commentary treated it that way. The internet treated it that way. That's exactly the moment when the Gunther angle should have kicked into gear. Picture it, the retiring legend Hunter, fresh off ending Cena and Goldberg's careers, refusing to let the biggest name in the business quietly walk away. Outlets were already sketching out that exact scenario, imagining Gunther hounding Paul Heyman week after week demanding to know if Lesnar was really done. Needling him until Lesnar had no choice but to come back for one final fight in his own home state, no less. Gunther is known for retiring legends, Heyman is Lesnar's friend, and Lesnar is nearing retirement. So it would make perfect sense for Gunther to be thinking the perfect scenario sees Gunther going up to Paul Heyman week after week, asking if Brock Lesnar is truly retired and demanding that he return. When it finally becomes clear Brock won't be returning, Gunther takes it out on his friend and beats the holy hell out of Heyman. If that doesn't get Lesnar to return, nothing will. It's the kind of storytelling WWE has run 100 times before, and it works because it's simple. Legend tries to walk away, Monster won't let him, Monster gets his fight. Every piece was sitting right there waiting to be used. Gunther had the credibility, Lesnar had the motivation. Minneapolis had the emotional backdrop. All that was missing was WWE pulling the trigger. Instead, Lesnar's retirement lasted about 3 weeks of TV time before he reversed course entirely. And when he came back, he didn't come back for Gunther. Here's where the story splits. Lesnar's actual return didn't point toward Gunther at all. It pointed straight back at the man who just ended his career on paper. Lesnar's comeback happened on Raw, and it wasn't subtle. The rumors of a potential clash between Gunther and Brock are officially back on after the Beast made a shocking return to WWE on May 18's episode of Raw to attack Femi. After laying out Femi with several F5s, Brock made it clear he's not ready to call it a career just yet. And his return set up a rematch against Oba for Clash in Italy on May 31. Notice what happened there. The retirement tease didn't lead to Gunther pulling him back in. It led to Lesnar pulling himself back in against the same guy who just beat him. That's an important distinction because it means the door that was supposedly propped open for Gunther got shut by Lesnar's own choice to finish his business with Femi first. Lesnar won that rematch. The two heavyweights split their first 2 meetings, with Lesnar evening the series at Clash in Italy after losing to Femi at WrestleMania 42. 1 win each. A rubber match sitting right there, practically writing itself. And when SummerSlam plans solidified, that's exactly what got booked. Lesnar and Femi will square off in a Hell in a Cell match at SummerSlam 2026 on the Aug. 1-2 weekend at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota. For a stretch, King of the Ring got tangled into this too. Femi's win there was supposed to lock him into a completely different program. The Femi-Lesnar feud appeared to be on pause when the former won the 2026 King of the Ring tournament, which was supposed to guarantee him a world match at SummerSlam. Even that got rerouted, with the storyline explanation being that Lesnar's interference would have cost him the title anyway, which conveniently steered Femi right back toward Lesnar instead of a championship program. So you've got a wrestler, Femi, who kept getting pulled back into the same rivalry no matter which direction the story tried to send him, and a Gunther program that was supposedly locked in from the start getting quietly erased to make room for it. Multiple outlets have now confirmed this wasn't a one-source rumor. The same account of Gunther's scrapped Lesnar match has been repeated with matching quotes across several wrestling news sites, all tracing back to the same podcast appearance, all landing on the identical detail that Gunther was supposed to face Brock at SummerSlam, and Gunther was supposed to face Roman in the late spring, early summer. For whatever reason, that got changed, so that switched up a lot of creative. Which tells you this wasn't a single leak, it was something enough people backstage were aware of, that it leaked from more than one direction. And crucially, the reporting keeps circling back to the same conclusion about where the blame doesn't sit. It wasn't Lesnar throwing his weight around to protect a program he liked. I don't think it was a case of Brock saying, "Give me 2 more OBA matches." That's not what happened, Self-Made Pro alleged. According to Self-Made Pro, Lesnar is currently the least creatively picky that he has ever been. If anything, that description suggests Lesnar has been the easiest performer in the promotion to work with lately, taking whatever program he's handed rather than lobbying for the biggest spotlight matches. That leaves a strange vacuum. Nobody's taking credit for scrapping the Gunther match, and nobody's taking the blame either. The Femi trilogy filled the hole almost by accident, stitched together out of a King of the Ring detour, and 2 wins split down the middle. Meanwhile, the report notes something else worth sitting with. Even outlets covering this story straight up admit it's unknown why Lesnar chose not to face Gunther at SummerSlam. And that isn't because the Beast Incarnate pushed to have his feud with Femi continue for several months. Lesnar didn't ask for this, WWE built it anyway. So if the Femi trilogy explains where Lesnar's summer went, it still doesn't explain where Gunther's went. And that's the half of this story that actually answers the question in the title. Because while Lesnar was trading wins with Femi, Gunther wasn't sitting on the shelf waiting for a call. He was in the middle of the most volatile stretch of his entire WWE run, and it had nothing to do with Brock Lesnar at all. Here's the part of this story that explains everything. While the internet was still holding out hope for a Lesnar showdown, Gunther's actual on-screen summer was consumed by something nobody predicted 6 months ago: a full-blown war with SmackDown's general manager. It started at Night of Champions. Gunther walked into that show chasing the undisputed WWE Championship, and walked out with nothing after Sami Zayn pulled off a shocking upset over Cody Rhodes to win the title instead. Night of Champions ended with a shocking title change, as Sami Zayn upset Cody Rhodes to win the WWE Championship. Gunther wasn't even in the match, and he still walked away from that night the angriest man in the building, because the outcome scrambled his own path to the title. What happened next is the piece nobody saw coming. Gunther cornered Nick Aldis, the SmackDown general manager, and unloaded on him, not physically at first, verbally. Gunther was visibly agitated as he confronted SmackDown general manager Nick Aldis. In the clip shared by WWE on X, Gunther immediately accused Aldis of bias, telling him, "You screwed me over in Europe," before further alleging he had been wronged again at Night of Champions. When Aldis tried to explain himself, Gunther refused to let him speak. As Aldis attempted to respond, Gunther cut him off and told him to shut up, refusing to allow the SmackDown GM to explain his position. An official who attempted to separate the two was pushed aside by Gunther, further intensifying the situation. Aldis immediately warned him against putting his hands on WWE personnel, but the exchange continued to escalate. Gunther also accused Aldis of making things personal, claiming, "You're jealous because you want to be in my position." That single altercation did more damage to WWE's org chart than any storyline twist in months. Both men were sent home. WWE later announced that both Gunther and Nick Aldis were sent home after their altercation, and that the latter had been placed on administrative leave for an unspecified period. Raw general manager Adam Pearce will also oversee SmackDown until Aldis returns. A general manager getting suspended over a confrontation with a talent is not a small storyline beat. That's the kind of thing that reroutes an entire brand's booking sheet for weeks. And it did exactly that. When Aldis came back, the tension hadn't cooled off even a little. If anything, it escalated. On the same show where Aldis officially returned to his post, Gunther was right back in his face, demanding that his championship situation get fixed. He was reinstated following a period of forced administrative leave. That stemmed from his backstage confrontation with Gunther several weeks ago. Gunther had another backstage segment where he told Nick Aldis to make this situation right. After all, he wants a shot at SmackDown's top title. Aldis didn't fix it. Instead, he booked CM Punk to defend the undisputed WWE Championship against Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, and shoved Gunther into a tag match with Sami Zayn against both champions at Saturday night's main event instead. That decision lit the fuse. Reports on the segment describe the exchange getting personal fast, with Aldis firing back. That the real issue on SmackDown wasn't a booking mistake, it was Gunther being an asshole since arriving on SmackDown. Gunther's response wasn't a promo, it was a clothesline followed by a chokehold that officials couldn't pry him off of. Gunther blasted Aldis with a clothesline before locking in a sleeper hold. Although WWE officials repeatedly tried to pull him away, the ring general continued reapplying the hold, leaving Aldis limp in the ring. Cody Rhodes rushed to the ringside as the broadcast came to a close, forcing Gunther to back away before further damage could be done. This is the thread that actually answers what happened to the Lesnar match. Gunther's story didn't stall out this summer. It got completely rerouted into something WWE clearly considers just as valuable. A full authority figure feud with real heat, real consequences, and a suspension that bled into real-world headlines. You don't scrap two dream matches for a talent unless you've got something else you think can carry that same weight. And the Aldis program is exactly that something. The betting markets even caught on before WWE made anything official. Dave Meltzer had already reported on Wrestling Observer Radio that the match was part of the plans for the biggest event of the summer. The match has already shown up in sportsbooks, with Gunther listed as the heavy favorite. If confirmed, this would be Nick Aldis' first match in WWE. That's a stunning detail on its own, a general manager who's never wrestled a match for the company, stepping into a program originally meant for Brock Lesnar. And separate reporting backs up that this isn't idle speculation from fans connecting dots. Dave Meltzer also recently reported that WWE is planning a match between Gunther and Aldis at SummerSlam next month, with insiders describing significant internal discussions about an in-ring program between Gunther and Nick Aldis, happening well before any of it hit television. So the real reason isn't some single dramatic reveal Gunther delivered in an interview. It's what he's been showing fans every single week since Night of Champions. He didn't get benched, he didn't get downgraded. He got pointed at a completely different kind of opponent, one who represents every ounce of frustration Gunther's carried since his championship dreams kept slipping away. And that program has swallowed the space Lesnar was supposed to occupy. So where does that leave the match everyone actually wanted to see? Not dead, delayed. And delayed by circumstances that neither man fully controlled. Gunther's own words from earlier this year still hold up as the clearest window into how he sees this. He wasn't dismissing Lesnar, he was queuing him up behind whatever business was directly in front of him, telling reporters at the time that once he'd cleared his current opponent, after I beat Cody then Brock can challenge me and we'll do that. That's not the language of a man avoiding a fight. That's the language of a man who assumed the fight was simply a matter of time. What nobody accounted for was how much time. Cody Rhodes came and went as an opponent. The undisputed championship picture reshuffled itself twice, first with Zayn's shocking win, then with Rhodes and Punk getting slotted into the SummerSlam main event instead. And somewhere in that reshuffling, the Aldis feud grew from a backstage shove into the single hottest storyline on SmackDown, with sportsbooks already treating it as the real SummerSlam program for Gunther. Lesnar on his end has his own account to settle first. The Femi trilogy isn't a detour he's trying to escape, it's the fight he chose to finish before anything else. Of course, Lesnar eventually returned to set up a rematch at Clash in Italy, where he emerged victorious. Lesnar is set to face Femi in a rubber match. For a wrestler who's spent his career picking exactly which battles matter to him, closing that trilogy in his own home state carries a weight that a fresh opponent, even one as decorated as Gunther, doesn't replace. There's also the question hanging over all of it that nobody's fully answered. Whether this SummerSlam is Lesnar's actual finish line. The retirement tease at WrestleMania was real enough that even hardened observers questioned whether it was a work or genuinely emotional. Following Brock's loss, he shocked the WWE Universe by retiring, or at least so it looked like. Perhaps Lesnar really is gone. WrestleMania is the biggest stage for that, and he is not the type to want a farewell tour. If Minneapolis really is the last chapter, then the Gunther match didn't just get delayed. It may have missed its window entirely, and that changes the entire calculation for both men going forward. None of that erases what Gunther's built in the meantime. He's still the man who ended Goldberg, Cena, and Styles inside 5 months. He's still the favorite in sportsbook odds against a general manager stepping into his first match. And he's still, by his own account, treating each obstacle in front of him as the thing standing between himself and Lesnar, not a replacement for it. What comes out of Minneapolis will decide a lot. If Lesnar closes the book on Femi and calls it a career, the Gunther match becomes one of those matchups the business simply never got to cash in. The same way fans waited years for dream pairings that never happened before a retirement made them impossible. If Lesnar keeps going, the door Gunther's kept propped open in interviews stays exactly that, open, waiting for the next window in the schedule to actually deliver it. Either way, the version of events that circulated for months, that Gunther was ducking Lesnar, or Lesnar was avoiding a killer on a retirement tier, doesn't hold up against what actually happened. Gunther didn't walk away from that match. He got redirected into a fight that consumed his entire summer. One built out of a title loss he didn't even compete in, a suspended general manager, and a chokehold that needed Cody Rhodes to break up. Lesnar didn't block it either, he simply finished a fight of his own first. Somewhere between those two separate storms, the match everyone wanted got pushed off the calendar. Not cancelled, just waiting for whichever door opens next. Sources: backstage rumor, WWE's initial plans for Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam 2026 revealed Men's Journal. Original plans for Brock Lesnar at WWE SummerSlam 2026 revealed Wrestling Notices. WWE scrapped major plans for Gunther to face Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, Wrestling Notices. WWE canceled 2 huge matches for Gunther this year. What culture? WWE rumors, Brock Lesnar's original SummerSlam opponent revealed Yahoo Sports. WWE rumors, Brock Lesnar was originally set to face a different SummerSlam opponent, Clutch Points. Gunther talks Brock Lesnar dream match after the Beasts return cageside seats. Brock Lesnar still has one more perfect match left, the Sportster. Gunther attacks Nick Aldis after WWE Saturday Night Main Event announcement. Ringside News. Gunther attacks Nick Aldis after Saturday night's main event announcement. Wrestling Attitude. Nick Aldis attacked after major SNME match announcement on SmackDown WrestleZone. Gunther gets into physical altercation with Nick Aldis after WWE Night of Champions loss, WrestleZone. Gunther destroys GM Nick Aldis after lame match against CM Punk and Cody Rhodes, cageside seats. WWE close to announcing Gunther vs. Nick Aldis for SummerSlam Wrestling Notices. WWE have had significant internal discussions about Nick Aldis vs. Gunther match. Yahoo Sports, https://sports, yahoo.com/articles/WWE had significant internal discussions 183,444,934, HTML.